Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please help me in welcoming to the stage Cleveland Brown, CEO and co-founder of Payscout.
So we have the smart group of VRLA here, not waiting in line and learning about VR commerce. So I always like to start off my presentations, obviously introduce myself. I'm Cleveland Brown, CEO and co-founder of Payscout. And answering the number one question, is my name really Cleveland Brown? So the answer to that is yes, it's actually Cleveland Brown Jr. And I do know that it's a Family Guy character, so I've heard that one many, many times. And I know it's a football team, and I know the football team has not won a game, or they didn't win a game last year. So no reflection on my professional record. All right, so one of the things I like to do here is if you get a chance to see some of the presentations, it's great that we all share a common vision and a common vision of the future. And that future being in the virtual realities and augmented realities and how it's going to change the landscape moving forward. So I'd like to start here, take you back a little bit. 1994. All right. So this was the Amazon shopping experience. Earth's biggest bookstore was promising 1 million titles, consistently low prices, and when you look at it, you get a chuckle. But the message that I want to make clear here is that what you see here in 1994 with e-commerce and the impact e-commerce had on retail and retail business.
I'm here to tell you, and take this one away, VR commerce is going to have the same impact on e-commerce. Okay? That's our future. That's the future that's being written. And we know what happened to the companies that ignored that. Blockbuster, Netflix is a great example. All right, so a little bit about Payscout before I jump in here. Payscout's a payments ingenuity company. We service over 3,000 merchants globally. We manage payments. We're a lot different than most other payment companies in the fact that we don't look at payments as a commodity. We look at it as an opportunity. We look at it as an opportunity for innovation to really help improve the consumer experience as well as help businesses and merchants improve their conversions. And we do that through 5 layers of innovation. So you'll see here, first being culture. We have an award-winning culture, really changed the landscape of financial services, having the best place to work in the world in financial services, global and alternative payments, VR, new acceptance, security, and regulation. And we could talk at length about any of these, but really what I'm going to focus on here is obviously the third one here, which is VR and new acceptance. Okay? So we are the first company in the world to execute a live payment transaction for a physical good that's shipped to a home in virtual reality. We're the first to execute that. And through that execution, obviously we work with some great partners. As you see here, Oracle is a really great partner. We provide consultative services to companies like Visa to execute VR commerce use cases. And as you see here, the CEO, Al Kelly, enjoying his experience in retail, e-tail, sporting and entertainment, nonprofits, and more. In fact, this image, really cool activation we did, and we built this with Visa and the United States Olympic Committee. And we enabled frictionless donations in support of Olympic hopefuls. And it was tied to a really incredible VR skateboarding experience. We actually put you on the skateboard in a swimming pool with an Olympic hopeful. And at the end of that experience, you're able to, without friction, make a donation to that Olympic hopeful. So I want to show you here, this is what this looked like when we first debuted VR commerce, and this was back in June of 2017. So if you can roll I can press it here. All right, lots happened since then. Obviously, that was first use case all the way to the United States Olympic Committee, and keeps moving, and it's moving fast. So, what do we see there? And before I start here, I think I'm going to be very excited. I'm going to ask a question. And the question is, who here has had a virtual reality experience in a headset? Who has one? Boom, boom, look at that. That's the most that I've seen since going on this journey, even before June 2017, going back to simulations we did in 16. And the first time I asked that question, I know we're at VRLA, but the first time I asked that question, 0 hands. Last week I was in Charleston, South Carolina at Digital South, and about 2/3 had their hands up. And this is the trend. This is what we're seeing move forward. And what do we see? We see here, we saw a shopper. It was great because she went through a lifestyle VR experience of body language, which happens to be a female sportswear retailer. And they were able to take her through that experience and then transport her into a virtual store. And in that virtual store, she was able to purchase the products that she experienced in 360 degrees. And those were shipped to her house. So the point really is VR commerce is here, okay? And the question that I want to help, not you answer, you guys are the smart ones here in the room, but really help others answer, as this tsunami comes into play. And I know the presentation had said 5 questions. To determine if you need a VR commerce strategy. Well, we've been able to narrow that down to 3 questions to make it even easier for you. So, what are they? So number 1 here, are you using storytelling to sell your products or services? Do you use digital assets, images, videos, etc., to promote your business? And is your company the type that continues to reinvent and enhance products on your current platform? So let's start with the first one here. Are you using storytelling? Go back here. To sell your products or services. So in my spare time, when I'm not running Payscout or coaching Little League or whatever it may be, I am the executive producer with a company called Filmantic. So we make short films and recently finished a feature film. So when storytelling is something that's really important to me, and really the part of how you engage empathy with your customers. And there's an article published in Forbes last year, and the headline of this article, I need to read here because I don't want to mess anyone's quotes up, is Storytelling, the New Strategic Imperative of Business. So in this article, the author refers to storytelling as a business competency that drives emotional engagement and resulting in enhanced business performance. Emotional engagement is the sister to rational engagement. Rational engagement is based on the stimulation of the mind, whereas emotional engagement is based on the stimulation of the heart. So in today's age of brand experience, it seems that emotional engagement is proving to be more and more critical to achieving winning results, and effective storytelling is at the heart of this movement. And really, it's the heart of this show, is effective storytelling. And this aligns with commonly cited conventional wisdom. people purchase on emotion, and justify with logic. So this is going to be easy for me because in most cases, my audiences, they don't really understand the difference between two-dimensional storytelling and frames, and especially as a filmmaker, that's what we've worked with. So if I want to tell my story, I'm limited to a theater screen or a PC or a mobile device or a tablet or whatever it may be. And I have to figure out, okay, how do I draw you into this frame and emotionally capture you to tell my story? And I think we all know and that's why we're here, is it's amazing is that I can now put you into that frame, step into that 360-degree immersion, and build a connection with you that's meaningful and tell a story that's engaging. All right. So talk a little bit about empathy. And we're going to talk a little bit about empathy in dollars and cents here. What does it mean? So here's another quote here. So Brent Adamson, he's a principal executive advisor at Gartner. If you're not familiar with Gartner, they're one of the leading advisory firms in the world. And he just published a book. And this book, I recommend reading it. It's called The Challenge Customer. And what he said is the concept of empathy is the core principle of the book. And the attributes of empathy, and here's his quote, are hugely powerful for anyone in sales and marketing. Gartner has conducted extensive research on empathy, and their findings support this notion of the incredible potential of thinking about empathy in the consumer experience. So let's give an example. Let's talk dollars and cents. And there's two main points of this example here, and this is charity water. And you see the quote there, we aren't thinking machines that feel, we're feeling machines that think. And there's two parts of the strategy here. And one was, this was a location-based strategy, a location-based experience. If you're not familiar with charity water, what they do is they provide clean and safe water to impoverished communities in countries. And it was very difficult for them to tell their story. So what they decided to do, they held an event at the New York Metropolitan Museum, and they gave everyone a VR experience of like the real impact and had them step into that frame and into that world. And one of the donors had pledged $60,000. So it was a $60,000 donor pledge. And this is before the experience. After the experience, that pledge changed from $60,000 to $400,000. And that was the impact of the story and of charity water. And they did that with friction, meaning that obviously you take the headset off and make the donation. And this is critical because this is something that we've eliminated. So what's important here is really to understand two things happening, okay? And there's agency and empathy when we look at a virtual reality experience. And that agency is the fact that not only do you step into the world, that you get to experience it from your own point of view, right? So you actually have control. And that control really drives the empathy when you put someone in that experience. So let's kind of move on here to the second question. Do you use digital assets, images, videos, etc., to promote your business? So whenever new platforms arrive or new technology is being presented, the first thought that people have is, okay, how do I do this? And it's going to be cost prohibitive. So I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Okay? So when we're looking at virtual reality and virtual VR commerce, it's very comparable to e-commerce. It's not much different. If you look at starting a brick and mortar store, according to Forbes magazine, $118,000, right? Go find a location, renovate it, get your inventory, build your business. That's why e-commerce is so attractive. E-commerce, $15,000 to $30,000. You can build your e-commerce site and build your store and start to conduct business. VR commerce, very similar to e-commerce. All that really matters is what's your ambition and what's the scope of the project that you want to put in place for your customers. And before I get in the third question here, the key to executing a VR commerce strategy is to make sure that you have a partner that knows how to repurpose those assets, right? You've already done all of the hard work when it comes to taking pictures and shooting video to create a VR experience. Because what we did in terms of body language sportswear is the images that you saw earlier, we repurposed. Those were not reshot. Those were existing images and video that we repurposed in that 360-degree experience. So it's very important to understand that. So next here is your company the type that continues to reinvent and enhance products on your current platform? This is the final question here. It's interesting we talk about reinventing and enhancing products, and I like to use Amazon as an example. So we saw Amazon earlier, 1994, and we see Amazon here with their one-click, formerly patented technology, and how they've enhanced their products on their current platform. And we see it here with checkout, we see it with Prime, we see it with Fresh. And it's important that the commitment to reinvention means that new technologies and platforms emerge, and some will be better equipped to evolve than others. We know this, but they can't be ignored. Okay? So as e-commerce emerged and made its way, we see companies here like Sears, and you look at their market cap and what's happened. And these were companies that were well positioned at the time to embrace e-commerce, and they didn't. That tide rose, and you see where they're at now. Now, with the name Cleveland Brown, I'm an underdog. I like underdogs. I have to. So I'm still rooting for Sears. You never know. You never know. VR commerce might be their savior. So the point of this, and what did they ignore? They ignored where their customers are going to be in the future. Okay? 1/3 of online consumers are expected to use VR by 2020. And this was a study by Ericsson Consumer Lab. And let's just follow the data. Let's follow the trends. Okay? These are major US technology adoption rates by household. And you see the color TV, the VCR, the PC, the cell phone, the internet. And these were provided to us by our friends at Superdata. And they're one of the lead analysts in terms of following virtual reality and augmented reality. And you notice the curvature of each line. You see where it starts and curves up. Well, let's look at virtual reality. And what you see here is you see a common theme and a common curve. And we know where this curve is headed. We know where customers will be shopping in the future. So what does that look like? So let's talk about virtual reality revenues. Dollars and cents again. $7.17 billion by the end of this year. Okay? Global VR revenues will be close to $75 billion by 2021. And that's where the consumers are going to be in the future. So I'll try to make this real simple with 3 easy questions for you to take away. But let me make sure that there's a understanding here. VR commerce, just like e-commerce, just like a brick and mortar store, it's not for everyone. Okay, so I'm not here to tell you it's for everyone. What I am here to tell you, if the answer to these 3 questions are yes, whether you're an incumbent, established business, some mid-stage, startup, whatever it may be, if you've answered yes, 2 things you need to do. Number 1, build a VR commerce strategy. Number 2, look to execute on it. If your answer to these 3 questions are no, then obviously it doesn't apply. VR commerce isn't for you. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, to any of these, then you need to start building a VR commerce strategy now. But until you've answered yes to all, it's not time to execute. So the point of this presentation, once again, was to, as I said, not help you. We have the smart people in here, but you're going to have to grow your businesses by helping others develop these strategies. So hopefully you were able to absorb this information. If you have any questions for me, I'm going to open the floor to any questions that you may have. I'm going to invite you to the mic that's sitting over here to my right, and you can also see me after. So thank you very much. Any questions? It always starts very slow.
Hi, I'm Johan from South Africa. Don't you feel that VR is a stepping stone to AR and XR? That's one of my beliefs, that AR is not quite there yet, and therefore we're still stuck in VR.
Yeah, so I actually look at them, these are separate, really, technologies at the end of the day. So is AR a stepping stone into VR? No, VR commerce is here, and the content is here. So when you're looking at an AR strategy versus a VR commerce strategy, it really depends on the story. So that was the first question about storytelling. What story are you trying to tell? If empathy is part of your customer journey and customer conversion, then you do look at VR commerce. If you're looking at an easier way for your customers to just engage with your product, then usually AR would be part of that strategy. But that's an excellent question.
You mentioned frictionlessness, and I wondered if you could get into that a little bit more about what makes that so dynamic for this sector and why it's important.
So when it comes to friction, so you saw the slide with Amazon, and they actually patented one-click shopping experience. With one click, you're able to eliminate the friction of inputting, whether it's account information, customer information, shipping information, everything that goes in with the cumbersome process in e-commerce. So in virtual reality, one of the things that we noticed is that there were just experiences. And similar to Charity Water, they had to take off the headset, and whatever they experienced, whatever emotionally charged them, then they had to go to a PC or go to another device to take action. And the friction that we removed is the fact that when you put the headset on, and if you saw it earlier in the video, you never are removed from the experience. You're in that experience from A to Z, from the experiencing content to having a one-click frictionless experience in virtual reality.
What markets do you find that are ready for this technology?
So with the partners that we're working with, and there's a number. So nonprofit sector is primed, and it's obvious to build experiences tied to the nonprofit sector. We've also seen it in entertainment, especially sporting events. Are primed for this, to engage and take someone into the front row at an NFL game or into the locker room of your favorite team. So those are two areas that we see now that are very ripe for this business. Retail depends on strategy. So just to kind of expand a little bit, what's the strategy? Is the strategy location-based, or is it mobile? And in the retail sector, what we're seeing is that location-based strategies, they're ripe for. And if you have foot traffic and you, once again, have a story to tell, and you tell that story to that foot traffic, then you're ripe for an experience.
Do you think there's a usage for VR in politics or other industries?
That's a really good question. So, I wonder what would happen if Trump used VR. So, the answer to that question, and I actually spend a lot of time in DC. So in Washington, DC, there is a reality caucus. Kind of sounds funny, a reality caucus, when you talk about Congress. And it's made up of senators and the House. And the answer is absolutely yes. So we advise this caucus in DC. And they are very excited about utilizing this. And the common theme is to bring someone to a town hall experience. So what they want to be able to do is have a town hall that's emotionally charged, really telling their message, and having you sit front row or in that room and in that environment to hear that political message. So the answer is absolutely yes, and we're actually advising best practices as well as security. There's a lot of things that go into political campaigns that we have to make sure that the rules are followed. As well as, I would say the biggest thing is they want contributions. So.
You might have answered this in the first 5 minutes. I marked it on a little late. How does Payscout fit into this? Let's say you're a developer working with a company that's trying to sell. Are you working with the developer? Are you working with the company directly? Maybe both. Are you in the user interface for the store? Are you providing the backbone that happens behind the scenes?
That's an excellent question. So we actually consult end to end. So we consult the complete ecosystem of what it takes to build an experience and then to monetize that experience. So yes, we work with companies, developers, manufacturers. Just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that particular customer. But what we do is the first part of engagement with Payscout is to make sure that our customers really understand how the ecosystem works. We build a strategic plan, and we help implement that plan from A to Z. And wherever gaps need to be filled, we fill in those gaps. So yes, we're a backbone. Yes, it's our platform. Yes, we develop. Yes, we provide content. We can do it from beginning to end. And if you missed it earlier, we did a really cool one. If you have a chance, we have a booth here. I think it's booth 612? 612, booth 612. If you go to booth 612, you'll be able to experience some of the content that I'm discussing. But we did something similar end-to-end for Visa and the United States Olympic Committee. But good question.
What platforms are you seeing VR commerce in? I was here yesterday in a session talking about how cardboard's kind of becoming obsolete a little bit, and phones dropping into headsets are kind of becoming obsolete, and that not as many people have the decent headsets. Where do you see VR commerce coming in there?
Yeah, so definitely not becoming obsolete. I would say that's a mischaracterization. Actually, adoption is increasing. When it comes to headsets, if we're looking at the future, we're just going to see better headsets being built as more content is being produced for consumers. And it's very similar to what we looked at in e-commerce. So once again, if we follow that path, how did e-commerce develop and grow? Well, the development came from the need to have faster internet. Why? Because people were building more engaging experiences with products. So it's just a matter of, as VR commerce, as you see that run rate continue to explode, you're going to see even more adoption, because we're not just tying content, we're actually monetizing the experience. So in order to see that curve to go up, that monetization is going to drive. That's a good question, though.
You talked about selling products on a commerce, like your own products as a business, but what about in-app purchases for video games and other kinds of content? All these booths that they're creating their own kinds of but in-app purchases, is that, you think that's gonna, is it already happening or is it gonna take off soon?
Yeah, that's already happening. So when it comes to, the question was in terms of how you purchase, in-app purchases are already happening in gaming. So that is the biggest revenue driver currently happening in virtual reality is on the gaming side. And yes, we do see that being the majority. There's some more slides I could share. I don't have them here, but that's where it's trending. So it's a good question, and absolutely. And we're actually seeing two things happen in that environment. We're seeing not only in-app purchases for gaming content, but we're also seeing in-app purchases for merchandise in that realm. So now they're starting to blend merchandise in virtual reality with in-game content. Good question.
Does Payscout handle, obviously it handles one-time transactions, what about subscription-based transactions?
Good question. So absolutely, part of our platform handles the tokenization of subscription-based transactions. So when someone's in virtual reality, if you're subscribing to something, our platform manages that as well. Oh, you're trying to get the mic over. Go ahead. Hold on.
You know, I'm going to ask you an incredibly silly question that is not really technologically oriented. You know, your presentation was phenomenal. I really want to thank you for taking time to enlighten us. I was curious from the idea you had until you actually went and started building the first prototypes. What was your thinking in terms of, you know, I'm going to go out, I'm going to seek funding, et cetera, et cetera. Did you have a pressure, I really need to have first prototype built? Or did you feel really quite comfortable just talking about your ideas and selling it in this sort of, you know, conceptual world?
So just make sure I understand your question. You're talking about the journey of being the first in the world to execute a payment. So if I can take you on a quick what happened there. So yes, very, very confident in first building a simulation. So our COO happened to be at the Sundance Film Festival. Okay, so tell you a little bit about the background, how this came about. And at the Sundance, and he's also a filmmaker. He's actually my partner in Filmantics. And he came back to me after the festival and said, Cleveland, it was amazing the excitement that these filmmakers and writers and directors had when they were experiencing virtual reality. And this isn't not commerce related. This was just bringing VR commerce films to the film community. And if you're familiar with, well, filmmakers, just nothing excites them, right? You know, they've seen it all, they've done it all. You can show them gore, cut off head, whatever it may be. They're just, hey, I've seen that before. And there were literal lines just all day for people to experience this content. And there was an excitement. And the question, you know, came back is anyone monetizing it? That was my question to my COO. And he said, no. And I asked and I poked and I prodded. So I said, okay, if the filmmaking community is excited and this is where they're trending and this is the content that they're producing, it's always good to follow where the filmmakers, what they're doing and what they're building in terms of how it's going to impact our lives. So after seeing that, it was really, the pressure was, I know there's a race, so let's build a prototype. We built the prototype. Let's build a team, put the team together. Let's make this happen. Let's be first in the world. And it's not just there. You know, we haven't stopped. We're the first in the world to execute a transaction in retail, the first in the world to execute a transaction for nonprofits, the first in the world to execute a transaction at this show to purchase your admission. But a great question. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
All right.
I have a lot of questions, actually. Security. So do you feel that people who are trying to make VR purchases, are they more sensitive to security than normal e-commerce? Or is it maybe following the same trend that we saw in e-commerce, right? The same sort of worries?
Yeah, so obviously less worried about security because of the knowledge base of what happens in e-commerce. But yes, there's always a concern in regards to security. And we take it seriously. It's one of our layers of innovation. You saw it, you actually didn't see it earlier. So that's our fourth layer of innovation. So we take security very seriously, and we tokenize the experience in a way where data and information's actually not being passed, it's being stored. So from a secure standpoint, it's really more secure than an e-commerce transaction.
Earlier you mentioned on-premise being like a lot of growth or potential,
Yep.
right? And so with the Amazon on-click, or the one-click, you at some point you had to enter all your information. And then from then on it becomes frictionless, right?
Correct.
So in this case where I'm going to an event, you still have to enter your info, right?
You do, yeah. Yes, the biometric scan to your device is kind of the future where you wouldn't have to, but yes, you do. So in the beginning, you would put your information in, and once your information is in there, it's the same process. It's one click, it's tokenized, and then you're able to continue to experience without having to deal with that again. So yes, in the beginning, you do.
Hi. I'm a developer currently working with a team of 4. We're developing a project for a nonprofit. And what we want to include at the end of the experience is a call to action. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we're considering is some method to donate to certain causes. So my first question is, one, what kind of adoption are you seeing based on commerce as opposed to nonprofit? And then do you have the numbers on the demographic? Is it a higher income scale of participants who are willing to donate through VR, as well as education level? Because this project is kind of a grassroots project, and we're anticipating people will be reluctant to pay or donate money in this platform in VR.
Okay, that's a really good question, and I can't consult you completely here on stage, but I would say definitely see me afterwards, and I can definitely give you direction. And you hit a lot of good questions, and it's just not part of this presentation in terms of what do the demographics look like. Males 18 to 34 are the #1 adopters because of video gaming. There's a lot of stats behind who users are and would adopt, but then there's strategies. So more importantly, and I'm glad you're here because it sounds like a VR commerce strategy is something that you need to work on. So yeah, just see us, see me after.
I spoke to Brad yesterday.
Okay, there you go. So you're already on the right track. Good question though.
Really quick question. Can you name the book again that you talked about? Is it The Customer, The Challenger? Sorry.
The Challenge Approach. I'll give it to you here, and I'll give you the author. Hold on. Give me a second. All right. The Challenger Customer. And it's Brent Adamson, The Challenger Customer. And I think I'm at time. So once again, thank you everyone. If you have any questions, more than welcome to see me afterwards, but I definitely appreciate your attendance.